I thought I would start with just a couple of minutes of overview as to why RDSI is hosting this session and what it's about. So within RDSI, we have the DASH program, which is the data sharing program, and the DASH program has funds available within it for infrastructure to assist with making data accessible. Now, LiveArc is, or also known as MediaFlex, has been billed as a very useful tool in enabling research data management integrated with research workflows. And many researchers around the country are already using this as a part of their e-research armory. So that has led us to, you know, sort of put this to the nodes and say, is this something you'd be interested in? Because if so, RDSI can fund it. So we are carrying out a LiveArc dimensioning exercise, which reviews the functionality of LiveArc against requirements that we've been capturing with a LiveArc dimensioning team. The dimensioning exercise is anticipated to inform the node heads as to whether or not the LiveArc is a good fit for their node. And we've set up 2 LiveArc instances on what we on the dimensioning environment known as Node 0, and currently those instances are at Intersect and at QSIP. And Jason's going to talk us through this Node 0 setup of LiveArc and demonstrate the basic functionality of the tool. He will also focus on specific customizations that we have in place for 2 use cases, and those use cases are sensitive data management, such as what to do with medical or ethical data, and then we also have a genomics use case that Jason will talk us through. Now, the 24th of October is the date that we anticipate node participants in the dimensioning exercise will complete those testing activities, and after which we'll present all the information that we've captured through the dimensioning exercise to the node heads to help with their decision making. I will, following the meeting, I'll send through some links to the wiki pages where we're capturing all sorts of information as we go about the dimensioning exercise. And I will also send you your log-on details so that you can access the LiveArc Node 0 environment. Yep, and if I could just ask everybody just to stay muted to help with feedback, and if you have a question, put it in the chat box and I'll be monitoring that to pass on questions to Jason. So Jason, over to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Frankie. If at any time you can't hear me or there's some issue, just chat to Frankie and we'll see if we can rectify the situation. So I'm going to firstly give a little overview. A lot of people have come across MediaFlux before and LiveArc. I'm going to refer to MediaFlux. The name is synonymous. It's a brand that SGI have used, partly because we had trouble registering the trademark MediaFlux in the United States. We do hold that now, so some people are not quite so familiar and have asked me to give a sort of a pitch as to why or what the software is about and put it into context. What our objective is, we've been at this for about 11 years now, is building a platform for managing data in all forms. And that means structured data, stuff that you would normally store in a, say, relational database, and unstructured data. And unstructured data meaning files and video, etc., documents, gene sequence files, etc., that a file, if you like. And the idea is to manage those together in a holistic way so that we can keep both the structured and unstructured information together. We want to do this in a way that deals with vast numbers of these things. So we've got objectives in the tens of billions of objects dealing in that sort of number of things. We want to be able to deal with very large things as well as very small things. The largest imagery that I've seen thus far is 450,000 by 360 or 375,000 pixels, a single image at high resolution over Melbourne. Or if you've got gene sequence data in the sort of 20 terabyte range per file. We want to deal with large cases where people have large numbers of files. So we have technology for bundling files up into single units. And we do that. We've done that, for example, on gene sequencing pipelines where gene sequences can produce tens of thousands of files. We coalesce those out of the gene sequencer, transmit them to the system, make copies for redundancy, and allow people to reach in and grab those files that they require out of those bundles without, in order to do processing. From a user's point of view, our objective is to try and put data management in the hands of as much in the hands of end users as possible, allowing them to define or describe the structures of their information in ways that they would like to, as much as possible without reference to IT people. So you'll see as we go through and look at the ability to define different types of metadata that generally vested in the hands of those end users that are authorised to do so. This is a sophisticated product. It contains a lot of capabilities, and we'll bump into a part of these today. But as people unfurl with particular use cases, it's generally the case that we have various means and ways of solving those. So through this dimensioning exercise, I would encourage you to engage with us, ask questions. As Frankie said, there's a wiki up where people have started asking questions already, and we can post answers there in terms of how you handle various pipelines. Some of the capabilities are quite technical, so we have the capacity to produce file systems. A lot of the process management sits below the surface, if you like. So I'm going to show, we've set up some replication today so that when an end user marks their data as being of high importance, a significant piece of data that's automatically replicated to another node. The business process around determining what metadata you have and how you describe your information and what the subsequent workflows for that are, that's not something to do with the technology. We provide the tools to do that, but we're more than happy to work with you to figure out how to achieve certain workflows. So what differentiates this from other systems, I think, is the holistic approach of dealing with different protocols. So we might want to get data in through one protocol. We might come in via DICOM, for example, and arguably we might want to go out via Twitter, or we might want to take that information out via NFS. We do it in such a way that our data can be repurposed. The system includes support for OAI PMH harvesting, which allows people to directly feed data into the data commons out of one of these systems. I'll give an overview of the structure of the setup for the dimensioning environment. I have a slide here which I'll bring up. Hopefully you can all see that. Can you see that Frank?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. What we've set up is we have a system running on a virtual machine at Intersect. It has a small amount of storage. Now, we might find that during the course of this, if people upload some very large things, we might need to increase the amount of storage. They're not hugely provisioned. They're about really sort of functional testing. The database for this is stored locally, but we're using Nectar storage at University of Melbourne. So there's about 3 terabytes of storage available at the Intersect node. We're using one of the newly minted test LDAP servers, so that, and these are the accounts that Frankie has been referring to. If you log into one of these nodes, you use exactly the same credentials in any of the other nodes. And we've set up a trust federation such that each server trusts the authentication domain that's been set up, so that if I'm Jason in the Intersect one and I arrive, I'm also known to be Jason in the QSIP system. These are interconnected over a network. I'm not entirely sure what the nature of that network is, but over standard networking protocols. I'm going to walk through today various capabilities of the desktop, the web user interface. That's one aspect of talking to the system. We also have people using the command line interfaces because it enables automated processes to go and grab data directly out of the system at the command line and push and pull data. The interface I'll show today is a web interface. This is by no means the only web interface we could have. It's the web interface that we are creating and we continue to create that generically solves a lot of data management use cases. So I might think I've explained most of these on here. We might jump to having a look at walking through the. Spotted. I accidentally pressed the mute button once I was changing application. So you should be able to see 2 browser windows up.
Yes.
Can you confirm that? Okay, good. On the left is I'm connected to Intersect, the node at Intersect, and on my right you can see the web URL. I'm connected to the system at QSIP that was set up. In the background, these 2 systems are interconnected with each other. We'll have to post out the IP address and URLs for these to connect in. The Intersect one currently doesn't have a DNS, but the QSIP one does. So the way in which this works is I have loaded an application. I've gone to this web page. This is an application. It's not a web page. It's a contemporary Web 2.0 application that's served, thinly provisioned and served out of the server. It contains 2 parts. It contains a web-based interface, HTML-based, and an agent that runs in the background to do heavy lifting to move data to and from the server. You can upload data through this system much larger than 2 terabytes of data, subject to the connectivity that you have. For example, trying to upload some multi-100 gigabyte files today from home was not that fast. So we're presented with a login screen, and I'm going to log into the Intersect one on the left. Now the domain you need to enter is RDSI. I think what we're likely to do is remove the domain part for people just to simplify that. But just remember for the moment RDSI, and I'm going to log in as Jason. I have an account. Just the login button. And we're presented with the desktop. The background is the default background. You are able to change the background by going up to the desktop menu and asking to change the background. If you've got an asset in the system, which we'll go through later, you can drag that asset in and drop it on this rectangle to change your background. So those are personalised settings, so it's only changing it for yourself. Just leave it as it is at the moment. We have a number of applications down the left-hand side here, and these are the standard applications. We also
Jason, we've had a question come through. Sorry to interrupt like that. Jason Tan is wanting to know, is the agent executing within the browser's JavaScript context?
That's a very technical question. There's an applet that runs briefly in the context of the browser, which launches a process in the background. And then the agent runs outside of the browser. And it does so that if you do exit the browser and you're transmitting terabytes of data, that it's still running. If I come back in another browser session, it will still be there running. Of course, if I log out, it will shut down. So it stays active for as long as I'm logged in. These are the standard applications down the left: the asset finder, the asset map, the metadata library, access management, and dictionaries. I'm going to walk through those today just to give people an idea of what's there. Those applications can be extended. We have the capacity to build bespoke applications, or we've got this templating mechanism to spit applications out and inject them in the side. So, for example, we're working with one research customer to build an expertise registry, so people can look up people with specific, might have certain capacity to work with one species or another, or certain organs, etc. And if people want to look them up, they can. The desktop at the very top here has a bar. As I said, there's a menu here. There's some about information. This is very important. At times, just to check that you've got the right version. We can see here that it's version 1.0.65. If, for example, there's we're out of sync, the browser will tell you to refresh the page. We also have an indicator here telling us that we're connected to the server, and if we lost connectivity, there'd be a warning to that effect. We can also see that we've got the DTI, which is the desktop integration agent, which is the thing that runs in the background. We have connectivity to that. That's up and running. That's active. So one problem that people may run into to start with is that this is a Java application. You need to make sure that your browser is not preventing. Firstly, you need to have a Java client installed, and secondly, you need to make sure the browser is not preventing the Java applet from running, and then consequently stopping the agent running in the background. We can also find out about the agent itself, find out what version is running, etc. And I can't show you because I'm just sharing this screen. You'll find that on Windows, you'll find the same icon as you've got next to the desktop menu. You'll see that running as an icon in the system tray. And if you ever need to terminate that for some reason or shut it down, you can click on it and a menu will pop up and you can ask it to exit. On the Mac, it appears up in the system bar at the top of the window. Over here, I can see that I'm logged in. My name's been picked up from the Access Federation, the LDAP server, and I'm logged into the domain RDSI as Jason. applications down the left here are the asset finder, and the metaphor is that this is really like a desktop environment. I'll just make that a little bigger. This is a desktop environment in the browser. So this is the equivalent of Windows Explorer or the Mac Finder in your standard operating environment. The purple folders are in the cloud, and the yellow ones are locally accessible to files and directories accessible to my computer. Now, in order to browse these, I do need the DTI to be running. So if the desktop integration agent were not running, I would not be able to browse my local directory, as I'm doing here. In my case, on the left-hand bar, we have the collections on the server. Underneath that, we have local files, and we have access to the metadata namespaces here. These are subsets of things that are available in some of the other tools on the left. We can also set this up, as we have done with some customers, people, to add the ability for each user to have a home directory. And if you have a home directory, and that can be picked up from your LDAP or Active Directory setting, your default location is a home directory. I'm logged in as a reasonably privileged user. The privilege has been picked up from Active Directory. I can see most collections here. Some of them have a little eye on them, which is actually a closed eye, which indicates that they've got visibility restrictions. So most of you, when you log in, will not see the collections with the eyes on them. The system has access to the data they're in, but they just don't appear in the asset finder. So I go down, I can go into a collection. I'll have a look at the training collection. I can right-click on these to create subfolders, rename them, etc., and control access and the like. And if I have permissions to destroy, again, I'm logged in as a reasonably privileged user. You'll see at the very top that there's a lock icon, which actually says that the root collection there does, in fact, have an access control restriction on it. And if I click on it, we can look over on the right here that says anybody that is system administrator has the ability to create sub-namespaces or sub-collections, assets, and content. Which brings me to a little bit of nomenclature. This system manages objects called assets. Assets can have metadata and content, and the content is actually the unstructured data, or it could really be structured, but a Word document, an image, PDF, etc. And the metadata is structured information that we use to describe that, and together they form what's called an asset. I can browse the system. By default, it's doing deep search. So on any folder that I click on, it is finding everything. It's executing a query and finding everything from that level down. That's not how most file browsers work in an operating system on your Mac or your PC. They're usually doing a shallow search, and there's an option up here to toggle between shallow and deep search. So I can turn that to shallow search. If I do that, that setting is stored in my profile. So next time I come along, the default behavior for me will be shallow search. You must remember that if you are looking for something and you can't find it, that perhaps actually those who created it. Over here on the right, there's some meta information, metadata. This is true for anything that I click on. some information about the data itself, how big it is, checksum, and the fact that it's online. So if you had tiered storage, you might actually find that some of the data is offline at times, or it might be missing. So if, for example, the file system has had a corruption or some issue, that might show up as missing. I can double click on these things to open them up. So in this case, we know it's video. So it's going to give me an option to use an external viewer. If I use an external viewer, it will be downloaded and launched in whatever application is associated with that type on my computer. So if you have a specialist file format that you open with some special tool, launching with the external viewer will download and launch that. I'm going to use the video player internally. This is our video player that's built into the desktop. It supports, make it a little bit bigger so people can see. We've got some information here. Video. So you can upload material. You can in fact also annotate the videos. I won't go through that today, but you can bring up the annotation tools to put markers at each point and put text around those that are searchable. And if you had multiple people looking at it, you would all be seeing the same annotations. We'll just use it at the moment for playing video. Just a little note that Firefox, so I'm using Firefox, that's probably the recommended browser. Firefox doesn't support MPEG-4, even though I've double-clicked on an MPEG-4 video. It's working because, as we'll see down here, there's a related, on the bottom right of the asset finder, there's a related asset, which is a variant. So there's two forms of this video. One is MPEG-4 and the other one's WebM, which the browser does support. And I've stored the variants in the variants folder, but it doesn't matter whether I click on the WebM or the MPEG-4, it works. So let's drag a bit of data in. So I've pre-dragged some data into these collections. I've got some geospatial data here. I'll see if I can bring a PDF in. I'll bring in I'm going to sort of browse to my file system. If I have a place that I commonly go to, so for example, RDSI, I'm going to drag that. I can grab hold of the RDSI folder, as I'm doing, with the left mouse click, drag it over, and pop it into the favourites bar on the left. On the area, I can access on the left. So I have, actually it's in the RDSI folder, I have the architecture document here. Now if I want to bring that into the system, I can just simply grab hold of it. I can double click on it here and actually view it, make sure it's the thing that I want to view. I won't do that because you won't see it. We're not sharing the application, it'll pop up. But I can grab hold of it and just drag over to the collections and go down. And you might notice that the drag thing is responding and telling us that we can import this in. It's gone green. Might be a little small for you to see. It's gone green, telling us that we can drag and drop it into here. So what will happen is that a dialog will pop up asking us, giving us an opportunity to configure how we want this import to occur. We've got packaging here. By default, it's none, which means it'll just come in, no alteration as that PDF, and that's what I'm going to choose. But you do have the option to bring in as an archive, to bundle it all up as an archive. So if you had a bunch of files that you want to treat as a unit, you don't want to bring the 20,000 of them all up as individual files, and they're all in the one directory. You drag the directory in, you choose single archive, and it just comes up.
Jason, could I
packaged up.
Could I just ask you just to turn off your video, just because we're having every now and then some issues with the sound, and we're wondering if that would help.
Yes, I'll do that.
Great, thanks.
I've just got to find where to turn it off.
Or maybe Peter can do that for you.
Oh, no, I've found it now. There we go.
Yeah. Thanks.
We can choose packaging. Now, this is the very vanilla environment. We have the capacity to put other packaging options in here, which are templates that enable us to look at the structure of a file system and package things up according to what's there. So I referred to gene sequence data earlier. We might look at the structure of a file system and recognize that that contains gene sequence data. We can walk down a whole file system, creating smaller packages. An Esri shapefile, for example, is generally comprised of between 4 and 9 different file extensions. There's no point in bringing all 9 in as separate files because it consumes inodes on the file system and you transmit it across the network. We want to recognize that as a set of Esri files and bundle those up into a single unit. I have the ability to set some other attributes on here. That's too much detail for me to go into today. I could change the name if I like. We could set some geospatial attributes. I can type in a latitude and longitude. We'll do in the course of this, we'll set up the geo-feature finder down here. I haven't done that because it requires uploading a multi-gigabyte file to populate the database, but we'll do that in the coming week. So, for example, if I knew this was at a particular town in a particular state or country, I can type that place in and the latitude and longitude is available. If I click on that, it comes in. I can choose at this point to add metadata, and I can go to my metadata library to do that. I was about to click on the video that we had, just wondering why it was a little fuzzy. But I'll come back to that in a moment when I show the application. So I'll just import these. And now this dialog, it's not like Windows or the Mac. It doesn't go away once you've imported something. We leave it up here so you know that it's imported. If you've imported a very large amount of data, you want to know that that was successful. So it's up to you to dismiss it, and I'll tell us here that it's been successful. And I think I imported that into RDSI. And here now we have our architecture document that's been imported. Now there's some attributes on here that I didn't enter. These have been automatically extracted by the PDF analyzer, which I've installed. Also, very shortly install the Microsoft one, which extracts the metadata from Microsoft file formats. We have an extractor for geospatial data. We've also installed a package for dealing with large wavelet-based compression images. So that's really simply the process for getting stuff in. You'd find it in your file system or somewhere and you simply drag it in and you put it into the folder that you need to look after it in. And I could double click on it and bring it down and view it. Here's another example where I've loaded some data in earlier. This is a geospatial image. We've automatically extracted the geometry. It's a rectangular raster. And we have the bounding coordinates over here on the right, north, west, east, south and east.
We've got a question come through from Andrew, Jason. Yes. And Andrew's question is, can you write your own extractor so that we can extract data from gene sequence files, for example?
Absolutely, yes. There are thousands of file formats out there. We have got a small set of extractors. We have some extractors for some gene sequence files. I'll have to look and see what formats that we have. I've dragged in a FASTQ file today. I don't think we've extracted metadata from that. I'm not quite sure that there is much in there to extract. Anyway, we can write them, you can write them, anybody can write them, and you can make them publicly available for anybody else to use. And you can retrospectively apply them. So if you say someone starts bringing in a bunch of gene sequence data, and then by mid next year you've written a gene sequence analyzer, you can reapply it to the existing data in the system. If I double click on an image, I get the option this time for an image viewer or external viewer. If I do external viewer, again, download, launch the application associated with this. If I take the internal viewer, now the internal viewer is a bit like Google Maps. It does image tiling and pyramiding. So it generates an image pyramid. I've had a bit of a go at this earlier. So the image tiles were generated on the fly, but have been pre-generated. But if I find they haven't been, I might hit a point where it's currently going to do, it'll sit there generating on demand those image tiles. So it's using the JPEG 2000 decoder to do this on the server, and will when it's finished doing that, thereafter those are cached. So if I come back, they'll be available from then on. As I said, the largest image we've had someone put into the system, 450,000 by 375,000 pixels. We can deal with ECW, Mr. SID, and JPEG 2000. So I've installed the binary packages to deal with those. So what I've shown is actually dragging material in. We've extracted metadata automatically from those systems. I can also add additional metadata. So, for example, I might say that document, I'd like to add some metadata for that. The tool we use for defining our metadata, and I'll come back to the asset map in a moment, is the metadata library. This is a tool for defining XML schemas. So the whole system, its metadata revolves around, Andrew's asking, I'll come to that in a moment, Andrew. The whole metadata revolves around, is in XML. Now, we don't prescribe any XML schema. You can have any XML schema you like, including, Andrew, Dublin Core. If you wanted to generate a fragment for Dublin Core, and in fact, we have a template definition for Dublin Core, you could do so. We have some inbuilt ones, and I'll just bring up some of these, and there are quite a lot of these. Some of these are internal formats. So, for example, the JPEG 2000 metadata is simply a set of key value pairs. The ECW is probably pretty much the same, but if you go and take one of the, I don't have one of the military ones there, but if you take a DICOM one, we've kept track of when it was ingested, what the location for ingestion was, what station it was ingested at. I've started creating a schema or a namespace for RDSI. However, I've only created one document at the moment with a very small amount of metadata. You can decide what you want to have as base metadata for everything in the system. And in fact, you can, if you want, request that whenever somebody ingests something, that you're forced to enter certain fragments of metadata. And you do that by associating that metadata with a collection. So I could actually say the RDSI collection, if I bring anything into there, I'm forced to enter the base information. But forcing people, that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. But you will want to define communities that have their own schemas. So Dublin Core's okay, RISC's okay, they're quite generic schemas. They won't be detailed enough for someone in the neuroscience field, or someone who's trying to describe a quantum mechanics experiment. Those will need their own custom schemas. So we'll develop communities around existing or developing or facilitating ontologies and definitions around their community. In order to add some metadata, I've got a definition here, and I just created some base metadata, and I set this one up so that if I change the rating or add a rating to these files, and I'll just drag this on so you can see what's going to happen. I'm going to say I'd like to add a rating to this file. It's got a definition which says standard, important, or significant. If I choose significant, I've set this process up completely arbitrarily. It's up to us collectively as a community to decide how we'll do this. But if I set this to significant, it's automatically flagged to be replicated to another node. In this case, it'll be replicated to the QCIF node. If I flag it as important, which I might do, then it won't be replicated to the other node. It's just, I've set up a replication policy in the background. That PDF was updated then. If I go over and have a look here on the right, we'll now see the RDSI base has now been added with a rating of important. We also might note, and you may know, although it's probably a little hard to see, we're now at version 2 of this document, of this asset. Everything in the system is non-destructive. So every change is audited. We don't delete previous versions automatically. You can decide to do that if you like by pruning, but if you're authorised to do so. But we generally keep everything so there's a full audit trail.
We've had a question come through from Andrew. Can you add a policy to a folder and everything in the folders beneath get the same policy?
In terms of metadata, yes, and let's do that at the moment. So, for example, I might say on the RDSI one, I'm going to right-click and create a metadata template. And this will bring up this library. And what I do is I go and drag the metadata that I want to add up to the template. And what this is saying here is that it applies to this collection and everything below it, self and descendants. That'll be the default. And I will make that mandatory. So I can set this metadata template so that next time when I come in, I go and find some more stuff, photo. For example, I'll take one of my aerial spraying photos, drag that in back to my collection, into my images folder. It's now indicated in red that the RDSI base metadata is mandatory. So I actually have to add that. It's forced me to add it. I have the option though to preset the values in that template. So I might say for one project, I might set up a medical project which has an ethics application associated with it, or an ethics ID. And for that collection, we can say the ethics metadata has been pre-populated with a value of X, Y, Z, whatever the ethics number is. So whenever the data is dragged into that collection, it's automatically stamped with the ethics. So I'll bring this in as standard.
When you get a chance, Jason, there's a question from Jason, in fact, Jason Tan. It's a long one, so I'll let you read it. And there's another one from Paul as well.
So there's the image that I've just brought in. It's automatically extracted EXIF information over here on the right. Some details of the image itself. It's reasonably large. It's got my RDSI base attached to it as standard, etc. And had that been a GeoJPEG, we would have extracted the location. Now, could you read the questions out to me? Because I can't see them easily.
Sure, yeah. So Jason Tan's question is, if you add schemas for communities, are these cumulative? E.g., if you have Dublin Core as a default across the system, but you define a different schema for, say, neuroscience, will the neuroscience objects collections have both Dublin Core as well as the neuroscience specific schema associated with them?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So the template that we apply on the RDSI collection applies from there down. I can then go and add so let's add let's add some metadata for neuroscience. So I go to my metadata library. I'm authorized to create a new fragment of metadata. Move this up to here a little bit, and I'll say this is. I'm not going to try and make up some neuroscience metadata. I'll just call it image. It's something about an image. I want to add an element, so I'm defining my XML schema here, if you like. Well, not if you like. It's exactly what's happening. And purpose or and I'll keep this just a simple or just a simple rating of
Jason, can you hear me, Jason?
Just I'll make it the string so I can just the field of data. So just by
Jason, can you hear me?
Now there are but you can give it a tool set the I can into a form don't on as communicate with it and I can. I thought as we should I go on? I can, yes. Chat. Oh, that's a bit poor. I'll just keep that. So now image. Yes, interesting. So I now have my my image, and I could actually go and add a metadata template to the images folder and drag that one up and set the metadata template on there. And if I can then go to bring in an image from somewhere else, I think I was in the stuff collection aerial spraying. I'll bring in another one, bring up to here. I drag into my images folder again, another one. Now I should have two pieces of metadata, the image metadata and the base metadata. However, if I dragged into the demonstrate for overspray 8, and I've got to go to the base one. It says the rating for this is standard. I get both of them. So this is hierarchical. And now if I find that last image that I brought in has two pieces of metadata, the image one because it went into the image folder and the base metadata. So yes, you can organize these hierarchically. I could have for that folder. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Jason, to interrupt there. I'm just conscious that we've got a question from Paul, and just before it disappears off the chat box, Paul's question is about the setting of the priorities or the ratings that you were showing. Is that something that can be controlled or moderated by admins, or the user can the user do whatever they like? Because the nodes would want to be able to restrict replication to those collections where it's been approved. That's
right. Yes, we can. That's done. That's configured in the server underneath. We say, or in fact, actually, we can do it at the collection level. That is true. So I could actually say not to wow you with too many moving parts, but I can also set a metadata access control setting, and I can say the base metadata. I'll bring up the access management tool. I go and find a role. So there's going to be a few things moving on the screen here. The only MediaFlux administrators can, everybody can, well, they can access, create, and modify, but all other users have the ability just to access, but they can't create or modify. So now I can say administrators can populate that, but users can only read it. So that's going to muck things up a little bit because I've actually forced us to add that. Actually, it happens to be okay because I'm an administrator. Because I've actually forced it to be added as a template, but I'm not actually allowed to modify it. So that's not quite right. We need to fiddle with that setup. There is also a setup, though, where we allow people to apply an initial rating or a perceived rating, and then someone else can say, I agree with that, and we could qualify our replication to say, if someone said this is really important, and someone else QAs that and says, yes, I agree with you, it is really important, and checks another metadata flag for that, then the replication policy could be set up so it only takes stuff that's been approved. We've got a question from Andrew, Keisif Andrew. Can you script the administrator actions so that we can template some setups? Yes, this is in all of this is the architecture is this. MediaFlux is a service-oriented architecture. Everything is a service. So all the user interface is doing is availing itself of services that are in the system. So we have people that provision users, set their home directories, inject things into their favourites bar on the left, all done scripted and can be automatically connected to any other system. The user interface just provides a veneer. Well, for some people it's not just a veneer, but it provides another interface to the overall system. So you can drive that from another system or from a command line or etc. So everything I'm doing in here is scriptable. There are the capacity to actually add scripted. You can modify. If I right-click on this asset, I've got some options here to things like rename. I didn't show this earlier. We've got two versions of this asset. It's fully audited. I click on the history. I'll just get rid of this other window so we're not cluttering things up too much. You'll see we've got a timeline of two versions. The first version, this is the current version, so it has the base rating and the document. If I go to the first version, it doesn't have the rating on it. So it just has the stuff that was automatically extracted. We can see exactly who modified this. So it's created by me, and it's got some contact details there. And it was modified by me also when I came and put the rating on it. We have some, so you can compare these visually and you see what's changed. We have some tools, a service in the system to actually do a delta between the two versions to tell you precisely who changed what part of the metadata at any point in time, and we will make that available in the user interface at some point, but it is available at the command line. So as I said, nothing, we've got a complete audit history. If I wanted to, if these were different images, now it's got two versions, but there's only one copy of the image data. Sorry, the actual content data itself, the PDF. It's only incrementing the version. If I update the PDF, then I'll find that there's a change to the PDF content, or if it's an image, etc. Dismiss that. Okay. I could go up to here and search for, in the top left up here, we've got text-based searching. I'm actually going to make this go to deep search, otherwise I'm probably not going to find anything. And I've enabled text searching. Now it's searching on, if I look at the left over here, it's searching on metadata text, any text that is tokenized in the metadata, the name, tokenizing of the file name, the description and annotations. And if I go and search for brain, there's a neuroscience image, my favourite one, that has that's information about the brain. And actually, this has been replicated from QSIF here. It's in the replica collection. I created it at QSIF, and I rated it at
Jason.
See down here as significant, in which case then it automatically came across in the system.
Jason, are you there?
So that's one form of searching. You can do.
Hello, Jason.
I am here. I am here. Can you hear me?
Your audio is breaking up extremely badly just now. I'm not sure if you've got something going on in the background, but
Nothing going on in the background. No one here. I've just turned the mute off and on again. So, yeah, I unmuted it. I muted it and then I unmuted it, and that's what I did last time, and it seemed to correct itself. So it seems to me to be some odd issue locally. So I can search for at the top here with plain text or just text searching, and as I said, it does text completions if I type in a few letters. Bracket to interesting. So brackets, I'm not quite sure why. It's probably part of the something in the metadata here in the exit data. I can do that's an unstructured search. If I wanted to do a structured search and find all of the data that had been marked as significant, I can do this. I've dropped down the filters viewer. I can bring up the filter selector. If I had a little more space, that would appear on the left. I'll just move it over to the right, sorry, the left or the right. And I'll go and find the metadata which I've set up, which is the RDSI base metadata. And I'm interested in things that have a rating of important. So I drag that on, I get a filter, I pull down the rating that I want, so the rating is equal to, and I apply, and I have one item in the whole tree that's rated as important. I can change the rating to standard, apply. I've got two things that have a rating of standard. So as we build up various bits of metadata or our definitions, we can use those to go and find things. If you need to look for things that are in some that need to be quality assured, or someone's flagged as having, so it might say those images have some artifacts in them, we can go and search for them and then do something with them. And once we have that metadata around them, we can then use that to drive other derivative processes. Okay, so I'm just looking at my list of things to go through. One of the other tools over here on the left is the asset map, which is for geospatial, and this is the equivalent of the Finder, but it's a little bit, it's going to be a bit squashed on here, and I've got two of these up for a reason. This is the equivalent of the asset finder, but using in a geospatial context. So there's a default map being set up to use Google Maps. I can zoom into that area. I've loaded up one image, which is the satellite image that I had. It took quite a while to upload because it's over 250 megabytes from my home. It appears on the map as I hover over it. We can see what's under the cursor at this point. As we upload other spatial data, you'll get more sets on here. I have one layer at the moment, and it's showing everything. I can, in fact, drag in various collections. I can set filters on these layers. So, for example, I can go and say, I only want to show things that are deemed to be that are important or significant. So I'll move that back over there, so apply. No, so that imagery is not, so you'll see it disappeared. I can apply that filter, take it out of the equation, and our image appears over here. So dismiss that. I can do things like set the colours of these layers.
So Jason, we've got a question. Is there an easy way for a user to drag in other public collections, such as the ones provided by data.gov.au?
What format are they in? What's the source format?
CCAN. So that's not quite the source format, I suppose.
They're coming from CCAN. CCAN can export those as XML or CSV, then yes, they're very easy to drag in.
Okay, thanks.
We have a CSV importer, and I'm just cognizant of the time. We can have a look at that in a moment. We can just drag in a CSV file, and it enables us to map the columns to the metadata fields that we've described or that we've created. You can save a template away, so if you're repeatedly ingesting the same CSVs, then you can use the same template. Okay, so Marcus is saying CCAN provides an OAI PMH harvester on the presentation layer that gives a CSV API. So are you saying it presents itself as OAI PMH that we could harvest, or it will harvest an OAI PMH compliant server? Okay, yep, so we could harvest that. There's no user interface to do that. That would be set up as a configured. So presently, no user interface to do that. We'd set that up as a service that's harvesting directly from CCAN through OAI PMH. I'm not sure that you're going to get the data anyway. It would remain in this other repository. It's very common for us to harvest other systems. We can harvest thread servers. So we have systems where, for example, using this mapping application, we're harvesting data from the Bureau. We're then allowing people in here to search for, say, wave heights or wind data, and then to be able to extract a subset of the NetCDF data in an export. I'll just come back to the map. You can create any number of layers in here. So we've got people who use this, for example. I've seen people at Taronga Zoo mapping out lizards on Christmas Island, and they've got filters applied to different layers. So the long-nosed bandicoots are one colour, the female Protodactylus sadlieris are another colour, those that have certain illnesses are another colour. I've seen people using this for mapping out things like salmonella data. We've got zoologists mapping out assays and things that they have.
We've got a question, Jason, still related to, sort of getting data in and out of MediaFlux, and this one is specific to getting data out. Is it how easy is it for the end user to get data out of MediaFlux and use it with other tools like Excel or MATLAB Galaxy?
Okay, all right. So let's have a look at that. Let's pick a field. I don't have a large amount of metadata here, but you'll get the idea. At the moment, I'm presenting in the Finder a tile view. pretty much the same as a file view. I can change that to a columnar view, and the default columnar view displays asset metadata. So from the virtual asset metadata document, okay? I can remove those, and I might say I want to drag in our image 1, and I might bring in our rating as well. Okay, so these I've dragged the whole lot in. I could equally well drag in individual fields out of each of those and configure the layout that I want. I can then do view download as CSV. So I download that. And what you don't see, because the WebEx is not showing it, is it's now just popped up and asked me to import that or open that with Excel. So I'll cancel.
We are seeing that.
Oh, are you? How did that happen?
I don't know.
You wouldn't see Excel. So maybe it's just the browser popping that up. So sorry, we'll just do that again because it did actually pop up. So download as CSV. Now the browser's asking me what I want to do with it, so I can open it with Excel. Okay. Any filtering that I have applied subsets the data. So if I wanted to do this, so let's do clear remove all, and let's say anything that has a rating set, we don't really care what the rating is. Rating is set. Okay, so anything that has a rating on it, where are we? Right. Oops, there's a no, that's not quite right. So if I do rating, actually that's yes, that's not S6. Remove all columns. View as tiles. Let's bring that back up again. Rating as set. Apply. Okay, so all of those have a rating. View as tiles. Maybe I haven't actually applied anything. So rating. That's right. Sorry, I'd removed all of the columns. This is the trouble with doing a live demo. Now I've, it doesn't matter what they are. I've got everything with a rating on it. I can view download those as CSV. I can also choose to download those as XML if I want. So if I've got some stats packages, for example, take XML as an input. A lot take CSV. Yeah.
So sorry, Jason, a question of mine. Will the download options reflect the file type? So, for example, if there was a Word document in there.
No, we're just downloading metadata here at this point.
Okay.
So this is the tabular form for getting meta information out that you might exchange with some tool. And you don't have to actually have assets in the system that have content. They could just be entirely metadata. So I can bring in a spreadsheet full of stuff that's geospatially located, display it on a map, do some stuff with it, and then bring the output back out as CSV or XML. If you want to export things and you want to take it out in some format, what you do is, I'll undo my rating here for imagery. So view as tiles. So if I did have deep search there. Yeah, sorry. If I drag those, I can drag all of those images out, either by taking the whole collection, so I've dragged the images themselves, or I can drag the result set down here. It says 1 to 3 of 3. I can drag that out. So if I've filtered a set of things, I can drag out what's filtered, and I can say go and drag them into 0.
So just to add to that, to what you're demonstrating right now, Jason, so a user is able just to drag and drop files from their desktop to the MediaFlux view and vice versa. That's
right. So I can I've dragged in and out of the desktop via this embedded, by the embedded file viewer. If you're in Firefox, you're very lucky because you can drag directly from the desktop into the browser, and there's a little thing that appears. So if I go and bring up my Finder, which you won't see, I go and find some. I bring in a tickle file, for example. What you won't see is there's a little drag and drop icon that appears.
We can see the icon within Firefox. So when you move to Firefox, we can see you dragging the file.
Yes, that's right. There's a little target that pops up, and it's not perfect. The capacity for the browsers to deal with dragging and dropping data externally is a bit tricky, but we've had people using this for a long time, and they managed to work around it okay. I've dragged directly from the Finder in the Mac into the system and dropped it on, and that's a test.tcl file. Or I could have navigated in the left here. Now, dragging out, there's no capacity to drag a file out of the browser directly into the file system. You have to use the internal file viewer to do the file browsing to do that. So I can't go from Firefox or Safari directly to the Finder in the Mac or the Explorer in Windows. I need to use the yellow folders in the left, as I did a moment ago, which was to drag out images into some collection here. Now, when I export, it tells me that there are 3 assets, 3 with content, and total of 224 megabytes. All of those are online. So if we're in a tiered storage system, some of those might be offline. I can, if these were archived, so remember I said earlier you could bring stuff in as a single archive, I could choose the option to decompress on the fly here. So if I brought my microscopy stack of 1,000 images in, and then I drag them out, I can have them all reinstated to their original form. There are options for processing what happens to their file name collisions, etc., and a few other options. You can choose, when you bring stuff out, to export metadata. Now, these are template-based. We have a standard template which takes out the metadata literally as it was applied, but we have other systems in which we've got other templates like other ISO templates. We've got a RISC-CS template, etc., and these are installed into the system, and once those templates are there, they appear in this drop-down. So if a user has needs to exchange metadata in a particular format with another system, they choose the template. Somebody has to configure for them making that template available. Once that template's available, they can choose that format.
So Jason, just in the interest of time, if we can just spend the next remaining 10 minutes on the basic functionality and then move into the specific use cases. So you've got 10 minutes to demonstrate that basic stuff.
Yes, I'm just looking at the list. I've gone a fair way through these. The reporting capacity is really visually in the asset finder or in the asset map by doing those columnar views. That's one form of reporting and exporting. We can also, these need to be, the templates need to be customly defined, but we can generate PDF reports based on any structured metadata in here. So we've used this system to generate things like clinical reports for people that can be scheduled to be sent out at various points in time.
And just before you delve into the reporting side of things, we've got one final question that was related to file import, and that is, when the file is imported into a collection, does MediaFlux load it as a single stream into the server, or does it break it up and upload it in parallel?
It gets uploaded in parallel, so the default behaviour is to use 2 parallel streams. Those are configurable as a configuration setting in the server to determine how many parallel streams there should be, but in my general view, 2 streams is, on average, sufficient without oversaturating the intermediate network. And that includes if it's creating an archive on the fly. So if it's compressing 10,000 files into a single archive, that compression, you can choose the level of compression as part of the specification of a template. That packaging is done in parallel. So the archive format's using parallel compression, and then as it's streamed out over the network is then transmitting it in parallel to the destination.
And as a follow-on to that, Andrew's asking if we really need a tool like Grid FTP then.
Yeah. When we first started building this system, well, actually, engaging with the research community, Grid FTP we were told that was mandatory for us to provide capability for Grid FTP. As it turned out, most people don't want Grid FTP for the certificate management. And I apologise to anybody on the call who really likes the certificate management. What they really wanted was parallel transfer. As it turns out, we have our own Grid FTP server that we built, FTP and Grid FTP server. But in the fullness of time, people really didn't end up using the Grid FTP. They're satisfied with the parallel transfer. And from a user's point of view, just dragging and dropping into the system and having it deal with that parallel transfer, that's much more enjoyable experience than trying to set up a Grid FTP transfer through the front door. And not to say that people still won't want to use Grid FTP. It's up to you. But yeah, we're definitely doing the parallel transfer for that reason.
And just before you get back to the reporting, Jason's got a question that is, can search filters be saved?
Yes, they can. You can save them as a view, save as. The view is an asset. You choose a collection to put it in. You can indicate whether it's private or public, and whether anybody else can just read it or they can update it, etc. And then you can use those to open later on. You can also drag those saved views into the left-hand folder here, into the favourites. So I've got on another machine, I've got some examples that are pre-configured with certain columns and certain filters. So if I want to, for example, set up a favourite in the left, which says I want to see everything that's due to be that needs review, currently needs me to review something, then I can make those appear as a pre-saved view. In the asset map, each layer has filters, and there are global filters as well that apply to all layers. So I can duplicate a layer here, for example. Duplicate. Give it a different colour. So I might create 2 layers, each with different filters on them. I can save the map. Save as. Again, I can choose whether it's private or public. I can also set a default map. And if there are multiple default maps, you get prompted for which one you want to open, but it depends on your use case. So reporting in the asset map is there's a layers show results. We can also configure a columnar view for bring the selector back up again. Asset metadata global. I'll just bring up the asset one, and I've got nothing. And oops, sorry, it's a bit hard to see what's going on there. I have no global. I won't harp on that. You can actually configure the same sort of columnar view down the bottom here for these filters for these assets. Actually, it doesn't appear to be quite working as it should. I'll follow up on that. And you can also then export those selected layers in the same way, or we can export a CSV or XML using the filtering that you've got on for a particular layer. that's another form of reporting. And we've also had people, they just simply search for stuff on the map, and then they just cut and paste an image out of there and include that in their report. Okay, so as I said, the asset information is available on the map here. All of these have all the same options. We can inject new metadata items or new menu items in here. There's a capacity in the server, say, that says all images. If you had a particular pipeline that says, look, I want to analyze these images for cloud cover, and that was an external process, you can inject a menu item in the pop-up menus and the pull-down menus to go and execute that external process. So it's available to the end user, and you could restrict that to certain users with certain permissions or privileges, etc. You might have a concept of publishing data, and publishing is to send it off to somewhere. Say, for example, you wanted to push data out of here into CCAN or some other repository at some point. We can inject a menu in here by configuration that says, yep, this is ready to publish. It goes off, or we use the metadata method where we harvest things in a certain metadata state and then push them out. As we do with our OAI PMH harvesting, you create sets based on metadata. Now, I did want to show the QSIF system is the same over on the other sides by RDSI, Jason, and I log in with the same credentials. Oh. So it has different things in it. And this one I've set up an architect, a specific folder which is controlled by me. I think at the very root level we should set up collections that are owned by particular groups and delegate administrative authority to those, so at a sort of a department level or a group level, etc. That is significant. All right. Now, in terms of dealing with sensitive data, I've really touched on that in a way already. To a certain extent, is that you can create in the collections that you set up. You can put access controls on them so that only certain people have access to them. So I can control this collection, my genetics collection, by bringing up. Now, just by the way, you may have seen me mark one of those images at the moment as significant. I did that while it was running in the background. We have a replication process running every minute. It's picking up things that have changed in either the intersect or the QSIF image system. And over here, I'm replicating the significant collections over to might be a bit of a mind bender, but this on the right-hand side here, I'm connected to the QSIF instance. It's got a sub-collection replica, and I'm replicating from intersect anything that's been marked as significant, and that happens automatically as I change the metadata state. And here's the image that I replicated, or I've marked as significant, and I'll see down there RDSI-based significant. So you can set these processes up. Whoever's authorised to do that, we can put access controls on that. There's a background process to move the stuff around based on the policies that are configured. I can add access controls to my genetics. I'll go back to the left to my genetics folder. So I might say I'm going to look up in our RDSI collection. So I'm using the Access Manager here. There are a few local domains, if you like. I'm looking for the LDAP one, the external one, which is the RDSI domain, because that's got all of us in it, including yourself. I'm going to search for Jason, and I'm going to make Jason, I'm going to drag him up and make him, that's me, the administrator of this collection. So I'm able to, as an administrator, control who has access to this collection and who hasn't, and what they can do within that. Can they create sub-collections? Can they destroy them? Can they create and modify assets? Well, I've got every bit of access under the sun. The next person that I drag on, I might say I'm the controller of this, but I'm going to grab everybody else who's a MediaFlux user. So I go and take the MediaFlux user role. I drag all MediaFlux users, which is the rest of you, up to here, and I'm going to control your behaviour in this collection. So the default second in line just simply gets read-only. I'll allow people to create but not destroy. I'll be the arbitrator of destroying in there, and create and modify assets. And we can control here whether you've got access to the content. Remember that I said an asset is combined with metadata and content. Well, I can allow you to get access to the metadata, but not allow you to get access to the content as well. So that's,
so related to that, Jason, if you have personally identifiable information and you want to store it in an encrypted form, is there a way of making the management of keys easier within LiveArc?
We're heading towards that. We're not currently doing it. One thing we have done to enable us to do this is we've recently beaten Apple, and we have our own cloud key stores in here for storing encrypted keys. And so everybody gets a secure wallet in the system for storing passwords to access other systems, and included will be using those to pass keys around within the server to enable us to share access to encrypted meta and data. So we don't today, but we're heading in that direction in the very near future. We've set ourselves up to do it. So at the moment it's controlled by access. So if I had some patient information, I might say in my genetics folder, I can put a metadata or ACL on there that says only certain people, bring my access application up, only MediaFlux administrators. Oh, I've got to drag the metadata on there to read the instructions. I bring up my image, for example. Assume that was patient metadata. I drag that on. It's a little tip, by the way, if you've got a number of applications, and these are fairly stacked because I've squashed them up with two on the screen at the same time. If you hover over at the very top bar, up on the left, it'll bring those applications to the front. Okay, so if I drag and drop on the MediaFlux administrator, that's the only one that can access, create, and modify the image metadata in that collection. So imagine that was patient metadata. I could say Fred is the chief investigator and the subject administrator for this collection, and some particular people. So Jason user, for example, he can in theory you can actually create but not access. So you can allow people to create things but then not see it thereafter. But I don't want anybody else to have access to that particular metadata. So I set a metadata ACL on that collection. So that will prevent anybody else seeing the image metadata for things in that collection. Actually, I'm going to remove those for the moment, because I do want to access this later from another session, or from the gene sequence input, because I've got a FASTQ file here. We also have the capacity to put intellectual property licenses around those. I'll set up some licenses in the system, some dummy ones. But we have cases where people want to allow people to view within the image viewer their whole slide image scans, but they don't want people to download them. And we can do that by putting a license on the asset. So if I go and create an asset here and say it's a license, if it is a license, it automatically gets some metadata which defines the terms of use. Let's make it a little bigger. This is quite sophisticated. I won't go through it at the moment, but you can control what the terms of usage are, so whether you can view, export, broadcast, download to anywhere or yourself, and where it can go to, and when the terms of reference are for this license. Any use of this or acceptance of the license terms then pop up when you go to double click on an image and it's got a license on it for viewing, are audited in an audit database and reviewable. So in the research community, all of this data may be fairly well open, but you could use those licenses if you wanted to, or that licensing capability, to record who has had access to your data. Just make sure that they don't misuse it in ways that you didn't intend.
And there's a question from Mohammed that is asking if admins can delegate control to collection owners so that they can manage their own access or access to their data.
That's exactly what we would do. So we need to, at the very root, so I've got an RDSI collection to just the root of this.
Sorry, Jason, I'll add a question to that. If the user accesses the data by AAF, their access is controlled. That's a question from Andrew. Now, I presume that's AAF you're asking about, Andrew. There might be a typo there, but yeah, how does that work?
Because we have an AAFS, the file system.
Well then, AAFS, in fact. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So, all right. So let me answer the first question. Yes, we delegate. So I've set up a collection here that's managed by me. At the very root, someone who's an administrator would create a collection and assign the collection owner as the administrator. And from then on, and from there down in the tree, they're the ones that decide who have access and what collections they create therein. You can, at that very top level, associate storage and types of storage pools with those collections. So you might say, this collection for this video collection has to go on a certain type of storage. Therefore, that collection is we create a data store that's provisioned in the back specifically for video. It might have a quota on it, and it's associated with that collection, and that's where everybody goes. When it comes to the architecture asset file system, that is POSIX or NFS, all of this is viewable through POSIX or NFS, and we need to associate your UID with your identity within the system. So my UID 501 might be associated with RDSI JSON, and when I come in via NFS or POSIX, I am indeed that person, and all of the same access permissions apply. So I can't see. I don't have access to things I can't see, for example. So I won't be able to browse files that they have no access. So that's all mediated within the server itself. And I was pleased to see that the people are considering putting in the AAF LDAP service, putting or allocating UIDs for all users. So we've got this globally unique namespace across all file access within the RDSI environment. We can use that we can trust that. We have to trust the upstream provider and trust that that is who you are when you come in via a POSIX interface. So in terms of sensitive data, I can control who has access to what collection. I can control whether they have access to just the metadata or the data itself. You can, if you're interested, we can walk through at some point, not today, but at another session, because we're running out of time, putting some license restrictions around these. So you can control what the terms of use are around your sensitive data. and you can control which fragments of data people have access to. So if you've got in one collection, if you've got a subject administrator for patients, they should be allowed to see the metadata for the patients in that collection, but not another collection. So we put at that level, we put a metadata access control list on there that says who has access to what. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Mark. That's the UIDs and RDSI initiatives. Excellent.
It might be worth, Jason, just spending the remainder, the remaining sort of 10-15 minutes on the genomics use case.
Yeah, I'm about to nip over there.
Okay.
All right. So one thing we can do, so I need to just, for 2 minutes, just go and find the link to the GBL.
So what I'll add while Jason's doing that is that Mohammed at Intersect has very kindly set up a genomics virtual laboratory instance so that we can show how LiveArc might be able to interact with the Nectar VLs, well, in particular the genomics one in this particular instance.
Yes, okay. I just sort of, but it was popping up in Safari before. I want to bring it up here in Firefox. So if we go and open the GBL, and I'll just move that over the way so we can see both of them. I think I'm logged in as me. Oh no. Now I'm not an expert in using this tool, so my interest extends to making sure that we can get data into it. So what we can do, we're over here and we say, look, I want to do something with this fast, over on the left, I want to do something with this FastQ file. We've added the capability to show the content URL for this, which pops up in a dialog. You can click on it and select it and copy it, which I'll do. I can go back over to the right over here to the GBL, so I need to upload some data, and I can go to the Get Data tab. And this currently has capacity to paste in a URL. So I can paste that in there. I've generated a URL for that. In the background, this is now uploading my data, and it's not far off being there. I've already done it once. You can see on the right, I've got an unnamed history where I've uploaded data. And we're just in the process of working through this. I'm sure there'll be a few tweaks to be made. Now my data is there. If I look on that, it's a FastQ file. I have it available. I can now go and use that to execute in the various in one of the workflows that I would like to execute. Now I can't do that at the moment. I'm not entirely sure how to drive it properly, but this is one way of getting data into the GBL. Another way we're exploring is, Mohammed at Intersect is working on this as well, is to be able to right-click and FTP the data directly into the genomics lab. So I can go and take these and right-click and say, this is a case where we would inject an extended service, that if this is a FastQ file, that we would provide an option to say send to GBL. That pops up then with a, these are all configurations, by the way. We've got the ability to write templated specifications that extend the user interface. Will pop up and ask the user which GBL they want to send it to, and then that service in the background would FTP that data for them directly into with their credentials. So they might have to provide their username and password. Given our secure wallet, we have the capacity to look at caching their username and password for that GBL within MediaFlux itself, so that they don't have to re-enter that next time. And that's it. We can do the same sorts of integration with other processes. Now that's the direct pull. I believe that, you know, when you get really large amounts of data, you might want to schedule this to run at certain times. And as we get more sophisticated with data flying around all over the place, we might have to queue the migration of data between different facilities. One of the things that happened to us with the geospatial data is it became so easy for people to find stuff and just drag out tens of terabytes of data. We had to work to put restrictions on and control what people could pull out in a single unit. So as these ways of moving data get easier, we might have to look at those processes as well.
So apologies if I missed this, Jason, but you've shown how we can get data into the GVL. Yep. How would you set it up so that it automatically gets, you know, the reverse, that you've generated data through the GVL and then it automatically gets uploaded into the storage that LiveArc's sitting on?
Right, so that's a question for Mohammed and the people using the GVL. My assumption is that we write a little adapter for GVL that just outputs that directly into the media flux or the RDSI instance.
Is that your understanding too, Mohammed?
It's probably muted.
But his fingers aren't broken. Yeah, in theory. He's written to me privately.
Yes, okay, all right. So that's the idea. So those are the aspects that we work through. But I mean, thus far it's pretty straightforward. I'm sure these are, we're happy to sort of work through helping create those adapters and keeping these pipelines going. So over in the RDSI world, you go search for the data you want, and it's tagged in some way. You've got some mechanism of publishing or pushing it out to the GVL, running some process, and then saying return to the library, which you could then qualify with metadata and other aspects. So it's all searchable, and people, I can add some metadata to this FastQ file that said, you know, my domain of expertise that said, yep, this is a good example of whatever, and it's traceable thereafter.
But Jason, I might suggest that we spend the next sort of 5 minutes or so, anybody free for all questions, so unmute and just hit Jason with whatever you like. We do have one that Sean has asked via the text field that says, is there a non-Java option for graphical drag and drop ingest, e.g. HTML5?
Yeah, we could use HTML5. Mostly we'd actually have an HTML5 ingest. We've used the other in preference because it deals with large data. There are limits to HTML5 ingest, but if people have got small, relatively small sub-2 gigabyte files, etc., HTML5 ingest would be fine.
And the other Jason is wondering if there's a simpler web interface to make searching and read-only access of metadata and data available read-only to the world.
Yes, that's glad you've asked that question. A couple of things we've been asked for to add enhancements for embargoes, periods, so putting access controls that last for a certain amount of time. So we need to do a little bit of development to add that, which we're happy to do. Another is really being able to push this out to a standard web portal. So we're currently collecting some requirements for people, and it's up on the wiki for examples of portals that people would like to publish. Research Data Australia is one such example. So we could create some templates that simply present the same interface around this data and which people search. So those are the sort of public interfaces. They're fairly simple veneer, if you like, over that you would just come through from another URL. We'd like to do that in a way that's templated as much as possible. So yeah, somebody's asked about Drupal. That often gets asked. It's pretty straightforward to create a plugin for Drupal to talk to.
I'll just add. Sorry, Jason. I'll just add to Jason Tan's question. If you have specific requirements for that, Jason, for that sort of global view of the data, the web portal, please upload that to the wiki, and I'll send out links following the meeting. Because I'll update yourself on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the public interfaces are by far much simpler. Most people, there's always there's grey in the middle. So most public interfaces simply have plain text searching. If it's a portal for some particular discipline, then you might want structured searching around that, but only only subject to that domain. So we want the ability to configure a portal that says we've got branding that looks like this. We want to present these fields for searching just for this domain, and I want you to push those out so they're just simple drop downs and so there are none of these other generic tools. It's a pre-canned interface. So if I'm interested in a medical one, I'm interested in whether people are left or right-handed and whether they're what their age is, etc. And that's all that gets pushed out. Those are all very easy to do. We've had people write adapters for all sorts of bits of technology to call into this. So we haven't done Drupal thus far, but have done enough other things to know that should be pretty straightforward. That would save us writing generic templating, although we're happy to do it.
Yep, and we've had a question from Mohammed that came through to me. Oh well, there we go to everyone. There we perfect. Are you able to read that one, Jason?
Yes, that URL that is there will expire after a certain time. It depends whether that's the behaviour you want. We're working on the capacity to generate other kinds of tokens that have that are either one-off, so one download, or last indefinitely, but are really constrained to only download that single file. So just let us know what sort of behaviour you want for that, and we can work to accommodate that.
All right. Are there any other questions that anybody might have? I mean, I'm sure you can ask them now, and I'm sure that Jason would be happy to take any offline as well, and I can relay information if need be as well.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, if people have got questions now, that's fine. If you don't, this is an iterative and a collaborative process over the coming period. And as we go, if we decide to go forward with this post end of October, that will be the same. We engage with people a lot. We've got the wiki to pose questions around, which we've started putting up FAQs. Encourage people to use those and share information about various pathways.
Okay,
yes.
well,
Jason Tan has a question here. Yes, they can. So I showed that there was replication running in the background today, but we can use federated queries subject to ACLs entirely. So our policy is that all of the systems are loosely coupled, and every system that you participate with in a federation, it's up to that repository to determine what access anybody else has. So the IRSA people would decide whether Jason has access to a particular collection. And you can also do clever things like this. If you have an algorithm that you wanted to do computational analysis, if you want to do cloud analysis, you can broadcast you have to do this at the command line, but you can broadcast execution of that service to all of the other federated repositories. So you might say, for all images from an Iconos satellite, I want you to run this algorithm over it in situ at each site, and it'll run off and do that computation. And this is the sandbox. So the idea is that this node 0 environment, which will send out the URL, you can choose to log into Intersect or to QSIF. Your data will be sent to Intersect or QCEP, depending on which one you log into. If you put currently that base metadata, and there aren't many more examples at the moment, but if you put that base metadata on and mark the data as significant, then it gets automatically replicated. I would encourage people, though, if we're going to have to get together at some point, think about, we're going to work through concepts about structuring metadata and who owns what and how we manage various business processes. So have a play for a bit, and then we can work through those in the coming weeks. And obviously, if we do go forward, we really need to get the right people together to say, how do we manufacture this template, or what's the best practice for an RDSI environment? How do people do cost accounting, for example? So we've got methodologies for that, for ongoing sustainability. How do we set up those communities where people define their own schemas? I think that's going to be a collective exercise. I'm very pleased for the opportunity to engage in that process.
All right. Well, I might take the opportunity to wrap this up then. So thank you very much for everybody's participation. And Jason, thanks again for giving us the demo or the tutorial. What I will do following this is send out an email to the LiveArc Dimensioning participants. That's not everybody that was within the call, but to those that are actually dimensioning LiveArc, I will send you your user logon information so that you can jump on the Node Zero environment and have a good play with it yourself. If you need to have more participants or get more user accounts created so that your colleagues might be able to also get on and play with LiveArc, just let me know, and we will pass that information on to the appropriate people to enable that access. We have recorded the session, so and we will put that up to be available to anybody else, so that if there were bits you wanted to go over again, you can. And other people can access the tutorial as it ran today. I will also send out links to the wiki that is kindly hosted by Intersect for us. We are capturing requirements on the wiki, and also there's an area there for frequently asked questions that Jason jumps on and answers every now and then. So that's a good source of information. And as the LiveArc Dimensioning participants get on and start playing with it, I will be requesting that you consider in the back of your mind information that is required to populate the business case that will go to the node heads for their decision making. But I'll summarize all of that in an email following at some point today, and yeah, we'll go from there. But I think that's
also we have available a MediaFlux Google group for people to participate in if you've got questions, as well as just sort of directly asking for support. So if you're having an issue at some point, let us know. As I said, these are newly minted systems. Well, there's probably a few teething problems we need to iron out, and one of them's likely to run out of space at some time if people put a lot of stuff up there.
Yeah, and I'll send information about that Google group in the summary email as well. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And yeah, no doubt chat to you in some other forum, some other time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks
Ben.
for your time. It's been great.
Bye, then.